Okay, our last but not least speaker for Sax Soul Talks is Ben Gamache. I love that. I love that name. I was when I heard it, it was like, who are you? I am Gamache. I just have to. I have to own it. I want it. I want that name. He's received his bachelor's degree in autonomy and physiology from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and his master's degree in cancer biology from American University in Washington, D.C. He was a research fellow at the National Cancer Institute and a Fulbright fellow at the Spanish National Cancer Research Center before turning his focus toward integrative health and holistic healing. He now combines his extensive research experience and personal background to bring together modern practices with established traditions as the Director of Operations at Internal Wisdom, located in Folsom, California. Ben Soul Talk is called My Journey to Internal Wisdom. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Sax Soul Talks, Ben Gamache. Gamache. Gamache, Gamache.
Oh, hey, there's a little bee. All right. I'm on? Yes. Okay. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm going to be presenting my story on my path to internal wisdom, but really it's a story on how I learned to love again. And I thought about this a lot, how I was going to present this to you today. I wrote out outlines and had cards and was trying to get it perfect. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I realized that it just wasn't getting right. I kept hitting barrier after block, and I realized I was still in my head. And this just needs to come from my heart. Because love is messy. It's unscripted. It's kind of fly by the seat of your pants. And it's an opportunity to make mistakes and still be accepted. So I'm standing in front of you vulnerable today, hoping that we can just share a little love. I was that kid that loved nature. She was my first love, and I loved her deeply. I would go out exploring the forests near my house, loved the frog eggs in the ponds. I was fortunate to have parents that also loved nature, and for some reason, got us every animal you could possibly imagine. We had fish and birds and dogs and cats, chameleons, turtles, everything you could imagine. I still remember one of my most vivid memories was one time when we were houseboating in Shasta. We'd gone on this beautiful hike up to this serene pool, and we're spending the day there. There was a waterfall going into it. It was just perfect. And I remember seeing there, floating at the top, this little green caterpillar. And it broke my heart that something so innocent had already passed. So I picked this caterpillar up and, not sure what I was hoping to accomplish, just breathed into it over and over, hoping for something. What seemed like a fruitless task, after 15 minutes, I saw the smallest little twitch, and then movement. And then before I knew it, I had this caterpillar walking on my hands, seemingly back from the dead. And the pride that I felt for being part of something so pure has always stuck with me. And I know now, too, that we all have that breath of life looking out for us, guiding us home. Through adolescence, my love of nature started taking a back burner as more pressing issues came in. Issues of domestication, grades, accomplishments, achievements, hormones. And as a quick side note, I had identified early on, and I didn't comprehend this young, I now understand it, that the way I love is wrong. Who I love is wrong. And so as this started coming into more pressing matters, I realized, oh, I need to really lock this part of me away into a small little closet. I'm not safe. So instead, I started overachieving in other realms, whether it was extracurriculars or sports or school, whatever it was, so I could feel safe. Because the more liked I was, the more safe I would be. All the while closing myself off from actually letting anybody get too close, lest they know I don't love properly. In college, that became even stronger. As people start to date, you really start getting into sexuality, understanding that people are experiencing partnership and intimacy. So I needed something to numb out. I started drinking. I started smoking pot every day. Anything so that I didn't have to embrace the fact that it was painful not to be intimate, that it was painful not to have partnership, that it was painful not to have love. So on the one hand, I detached from myself and my love of nature, and on the other, I started numbing out because I wasn't okay to express myself and how I loved. So I became a shell of myself, just hollowly moving through the motions. I was an eternal optimist, however, though. I would always tell myself I was happy, I was so blessed, I had everything. This is just a phase, maybe, or something that I can move through, or maybe I can just live my life never really embracing that. After undergrad, I knew I needed a change, something to get me out of my world, my little perception. So I ended up in Peru. Just kind of spur of the moment, I was like, I need to go abroad. I need to pop my bubble. And I ended up in the Sacred Valley in Ollantaytambo, in a small rural village with a host family. And there I met incredible people, global citizens, people that were there to make a change. They were putting aside everything they knew to make a difference. And I felt accepted. I wasn't still embracing who I was, but these were people who just seemed like they were accepting people for who they were. That, and I was experiencing people that were really struggling. Not that I wasn't suffering and the people around me weren't suffering, but these were people that had issues with basic necessities. Where was their next meal coming from? Basic sanitation. Highland community members that were walking 48 hours to get to the local clinic to have their child seen by the doctor, often having to wait 4 to 8 hours more to potentially not even see the doctor at all, given medications that weren't going to help their child because it was just what was easiest. And that really started to put things in perspective that there's necessary suffering, and then there's self-imposed suffering. So I came back and realized it's time. And in one fell swoop, I ripped off the Band-Aid, and I came out to everybody that mattered to me in 24 hours. And I sobbed for 48. I had shed a skin, a really thick layer of myself, but there was still some self-loathing in there. There was not that full self-acceptance because I was still so attached to the stigma of gay and what that means. Fast forward to DC, where I was going to do my graduate degree. And this was the first time where I was able to go into a place coming in as a gay man as opposed to having to come out to everybody I knew. So it felt like a fresh start, an opportunity for me to choose a new image for myself. And I came out of my shell. I've always been a very gregarious person, but now I was really just letting myself be and have fun. I started dating, understanding and experiencing intimacy, developed my first real core tribe of friends that just got me. Global citizens, too. These were people that were just so diverse and just so open-minded. I also started reconnecting with my love for nature again, but this time in the form of research and biology. I was surrounded by brilliant minds, people that were asking probing questions to life. How does it work? How does it operate? There was a small part of me that didn't feel like it was grasping the whole picture. I was like, something is missing, but I still loved what I was doing. At that time, too, I was still following the safe path. I was still looking for admiration, for the safety of a professional career. I was getting myself and grooming myself to become a doctor in cancer research, applying to PhD programs. How admirable, right? I was told I was a shoo-in. I had the extracurriculars, I had the background, I had the test scores, I had everything you could imagine. And when you have these people high up, that are so prestigious telling you, oh, you've got this. And I applied to some of the most prestigious programs in the world. And one after another, I got denied. Did not even get a single interview. I had also at that time ignored dating and being around any intimacy because I was so hyper-focused on my next achievement. And then all of a sudden, I was adrift. This was the first time in my life I did not have a point B. And I've always been a planner. As a perfectionist, I was like, no, I've got to have my next step. What's my next achievement? Blinders on to where I was going. So with no point B and no real distractions, again, I was just floating in a little bit of a turbulent sea with no anchor. I felt like I had a little life preserver on, and I was just in a stormy sea, not sure where to go. The only place I could go was inward. So this started my spiritual opening, just the crack in it. And oftentimes it does come in periods of uncertainty. And so I started just picking up books on wisdom traditions and spiritual greats. And I read The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, which really resonated with me. And I was like, oh, this is somebody that's kind of getting what I'm going through. I read the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, and thought this is batshit crazy. Like, what is he talking about? This is just a world of contradictions. Next. Read Ram Dass, and something in him actually made me anxious, a little fearful. I wasn't ready for him. Read Carolyn Mace. She has a biological component with her medical intuition, as well as really comes at it from theology, and I'd grown up Catholic, and so there was something about her that resonated more. But the point being was, I was thirsty. I just could not learn enough. Things started happening serendipitously. I'd been, of course, talking to my wonderful parents about all this because they're so open to whatever I'm going through. And I was talking with my mom, and she was like, next time you're home, there's actually this meditation, a guided meditation. It's going to be led by this woman, Sarah Grace, who some of you may know. I think we should go. I was like, yeah, sign me up. So my parents and I went to this meditation. The first time I'd ever been led through a guided meditation. I'd done some of my own, and as you can imagine, the first time you're really getting exposed to that, you have no idea what you're doing. I'm just focusing on my breath and was doing nothing. So I'm sitting there in Shavasana, and I remember her saying something along the lines of, imagine that the whole world is cocooning you, that you're safe. I can even feel it now. I had a crack. And she must have felt that because before I knew it, she was starting just silently working on me, on my third eye, on my throat, on my heart. And I just felt calm come over me. At the end of the meditation, she beelines to me and just looks at me with her piercing gaze and says, I need to tell you something. You've got this. Keep going. You're right there. And to hear that by somebody who actually feels like they're seeing you to say, you've got this, was all I needed. I soon got set up with my now mentor, Tatiana, who's a modern-day shaman. Studied under the tutelage of Don Miguel Ruiz for decades, and started doing readings with her. I did readings with Sarah. I actually went to a retreat with Tatiana in the Redwoods called the Angel of Death. You can imagine I was terrified going into this thing. First retreat I'd ever been to. And there we really got exposed to, for the first time, ego and image and representation. More than anything, too, was that life is artwork, and I am the master artist. So what is it that I'm going to paint? The beautiful fortune of not getting into PhDs soon presented themselves as well, because before I knew it, I was off to Spain to do my Fulbright fellowship, and that was my crowning achievement. I was still so seeking for some admiration, and so I felt so much pride at the same time, though, because I'd worked really hard to get there. And Spain was wonderful. I continued to be a global citizen. I stepped into myself. And I also identified that research is not for me. And how beautiful is that had I got into these prestigious programs, I would have said yes. You can't turn down Harvard. You can't turn down that stamp on your passport. And I knew that there was something missing. I loved biology, and that's the reason I chose the study of life is because of my underlying love of nature. But it really was missing something for me. It felt too linear. It felt like I wasn't able to embrace the bigger picture. Because now that I was embracing my spirituality, there was something that I wanted to explore more in the study of life. Something about the emotions, how does that have a play? Something about the mind, something about the energetics, the spirit. So I came back from Spain and all of a sudden had to take a leap of faith and leave behind these prestigious degrees. I knew something about holistic and integrative and these buzzwords, but I really didn't know what that meant. And I just started exploring. And so I moved back in with my parents and had to swallow my ego because all of a sudden I'm in my late 20s living at home with advanced degrees, with no job, just taking a leap of faith. But this felt different. This felt different because this time it wasn't an uncertainty. It was uncertainty, but it was uncertainty with excitement. I had that breath of life behind me. And I'm grabbing dinner with Sarah yet again, and I'm telling her about where I'm going right now, and she says, I've got this place that I'm working at. It's called Internal Wisdom. There's something for you there. Just come in. I walk in the door, and I meet Rochelle Dardano, and immediately I'm just like, hello again. It's my first thought. This is not somebody this was somebody I had met before. Single mother of 3, business owner, practitioner, running a business completely on her own. You could imagine she needed some support. So this synergy started being created where I was going to support her and she would be willing to take me in, teach me all that she knew, and introduce me to integrative health, what it's like to run a business, what it's like to be a healer, and just see what happens. Fast forward a year and a half, and we've now created this space that's still growing, as she mentioned, still working its way out of its own skins. But it's a space that I could have used so much when I was going through my own turmoil. A space where you feel safe, seen, heard, accepted for exactly as who you are, and can be guided towards where you want to go. And what we've created there is just such a beautiful synergy that is so needed right now. And so I stand in front of you today, changed. And who am I today? I'm a man who's learned his own self-healing through self-love. I'm a man who understands that vulnerability is strength. I'm a person that no longer identifies with the term gay, simply that I'm a human that loves a human. I understand that my voice has power and it can help others understand their own power as well. I'm a person that understands that I am but a representation of life, moment to moment, but that it is a representation of my choosing. And so now the words of Lao Tzu don't seem so confusing to me when he said, to know others is wisdom, to know yourself is enlightenment. Thank you.